Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the Corner Talks podcast. Today, I have a very talented photographer, Mathew Guido. What's going on, man?
What's up, guys? How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, man. I just have to start out and say that, like with other guests I've had on the podcast, you are someone that I've never really met personally, face to face until now. We've connected through Instagram, right? The beauty of
Yeah.
social media. And it's just really a pleasure to have another creative on the podcast, someone that I really do revere and admire in their work.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to be here. I think like one of the best parts about all the different podcasts that are coming out, especially from COVID, is we're missing that connection with people, right? And Instagram in general, to me, is like you're connecting with people, but it's so like non-connecting at the same time because it's so disposable. So
Yeah.
you're just tapping into something that you're interested in, which is cool.
Yeah, especially like how the algorithms are run. We remember Instagram in the early days. You post something and it gets a lot of traction because it's the most recent post, but now it's all about likes and things like that. So it's just nice to
Engagement.
know that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just nice to know that through all that noise, we're able to connect, all right, and find
exactly.
each other's work. So yeah, having said that, like I said, you're a photographer, a very very talented one at that. Your style really does intrigue me, man. It's very exciting. I'm sure you get compliments all the time with regards to your use of lighting and composition. Even the models are great, right? Like you don't, you're
Thanks.
very selective, I'm sure, about the models, right? Because I've
I
seen
honestly, I love casting. So
exactly, right?
people ask, like, there's two things I hear all the time. Probably one of them is like, will you shoot me? And like the other one is like, talking about what do you need to be to become a model and like all of that kind of stuff.
Right,
So
right.
I always elaborate on that. We can go into that too, but casting
Yeah,
is
no,
important.
I love to hear some tips too because funny that you say that. Before the pandemic started, I was kind of in between jobs and I was trying to figure out what to do next with my career. And I said, you know what? Why don't I just try out this acting modeling agency? So I got signed, and then the pandemic hit. So if you can give me some tips or advice, or if you ever want to work, if you ever want to like help my portfolio, yeah, just throw it out there because
There you
I never
go.
really got the chance to sink my teeth in it because everything's been halted, right? But I know things will pick up soon.
Yeah, I think the whole COVID definitely put like a huge damper on all production in general. I know now like things are starting to like open up slightly, but it's just not the same. Like
Yeah,
there's another barrier before you can even get to the part where you're doing what was already hard to do in the first place. So
yeah,
even
and
it's
sorry,
even
go
more
ahead.
it's even more incentive now to like make everything count, you know? Like I think there's a
Yeah,
lot of like stuff happening and now it's like
yeah.
keep your ducks in a row before they quack.
Yeah, and I'm happy that you brought that up actually, because from one creative to another, I'm very curious. Obviously, on Instagram, it doesn't show the full picture, right?
Yeah.
And until you talk to the person. So from what I see is you're killing it. You know, you're putting out content, you're doing collaborations and productions. How has the pandemic affected you and your business?
Um, it's almost like here, okay, in a metaphor of example, when you go to a restaurant and you order something and you're so excited for it to get to your table and you're like seeing it pass by and you can smell
Right.
it and you're like every time the waiter goes by, you're like, oh, is that mine? Like you're excited. It's felt like that the whole time. So it's like I know I'm in a position of being able to do what I'm doing,
Right.
but in the situation, I'm just kind of like sitting, waiting for things to even out. For example, a lot of the work I was doing previously was more fashion and portrait and beauty. And the stuff that I'm currently doing has a little bit more production. So there's more bodies, more people, more complications. And it's funny to do that at a time when there's like all these restrictions. So it's definitely been challenging, but it's caused me to kind of go back into my own thoughts. I went through like so many different layers already through COVID. Like I
Yeah.
reevaluated my point of view, I reevaluated my portfolio, I reevaluated what I want. I made business plans multiple times, and like not that things weren't going the way I wanted them before, but like just to take the time to fine tune.
Hmm.
And none of those things have been able to really go back into action. So that's where, like in Ontario specifically, it's been frustrating.
Yeah, for sure.
I have friends all over the world that are like, I can't believe you're still locked down. I can't believe it's
Yeah.
still like this and all that. But
Yeah.
for our realities, it's made me like spend more time in here. And I'm really
Yeah.
excited now that things are opening up. I'm going to get to let all that out to everybody. So That's my
Yeah,
big
that's great.
like positive take.
Yeah, your opportunity, and like you said, like that when the pandemic hit, it's people don't realize that as much as people were suffering, there's the other side where it's like they got a chance to collect their thoughts and be alone with in your case your imagination, and figure out what direction you want to take with your brand, your business, and things like that.
Yeah.
But you were mentioning how you don't feel it's going to be the same going back. What did you mean by that?
I think maybe the speed of which things kind of pop back into
Mm,
normal. So yeah, I think like if we think by the fall things are just going to be like back to how it was, like that's what I mean. I don't think it's going to be like that.
no, eh?
It'll probably be like a layered like release back to where it was, if it ever goes back to where it was. Who knows? But
Like with the stages, right?
mm,
Stage one and two, they're already doing that now. It's interesting that you say that, because for me, the way I guess they say not to listen to the media too much, you get the impression like by July it's going to be like the United States. They say everything's going to be open, everyone's going to be a free for all, and you're going to be killing it. But that's an interesting perspective. That's why I love talking to people, is because everyone has a different take on it. And you
yeah,
feel
I
like as
mean,
an artist, it's going to be
one
gradual.
one of the biggest complications is like, okay, let's say I'm doing a production or there's something happening in a couple of days.
Hmm.
It could be that morning of, and then someone could say, "Hey, someone I know was in contact with someone that was positive." So now it's like a Jenga effect. Like one person pulls out, and then the whole thing
Yeah,
kind of.
of course.
So it's been
Yeah.
a lot of that, but I understand why that's happening. So hopefully we can keep the Jenga tower together so things can get created. But
Does that affect in a way? Because I want to understand this. Does that affect like your creativity or your momentum with the
um,
project?
momentum, maybe just because I was at like a point right before COVID where I was about to reintroduce my body of work to everybody.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, so I basically in 2016 I did a lot of work with like neon lighting, and I shot a specific creative called Eye Candy that went viral. It got picked up by Adobe as the cover of Lightroom. I won a bunch of awards, got hired in a bunch of jobs, got to go like travel to Italy to work for Ray-Ban.
Wow.
Worked with Huawei out of Germany, and like I did a whole bunch of like different things after that. And then commercially, I was being hired specifically for that exact aesthetic. So I kind of rode a really beautiful wave, and what I realized in that was there was room to elevate that point of view. So I'm at that like really interesting point right now where I haven't shown that elevation visually yet to the audiences and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and that gets like really frustrating. I almost went into like a creative insomnia over COVID because
Oh
how
wow.
people are viewing what I'm doing doesn't represent where I'm currently at. It's like a musician having an album out, and it doesn't represent where their current headspace is.
Yeah.
They're about to drop a new album, so I'm just so excited to bring this next body of work forward. And that's been probably the most frustrating thing for sure.
Yeah. Strange as it might sound, like looking at your profile, for example, like someone looking in, it's like you're basically saying what I see is outdated from your perspective. Like you've advanced, and you've there's more content that you want to show that's even different.
Yeah. Not to a degree that you'll notice like such a stark black and white
Drastic.
difference.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
a growth. It's just a growth, right? So I'm really,
Right.
it's really tough, man. Like when you're in an artist position in general, like you basically have to become professional at self-hating on like, you produce something and then you get over it and you want to produce something else.
Yeah.
So over the years, like I learned how to like go through all the swings of I'm doing something, I express it. I do something, I express it. And I always actually give an example with that too. So um, when things happen to you as an artist, you have to absorb those things, digest it, and then communicate it back out. That's the whole storytelling of like, let's say something
Right.
happened in my life. I'm gonna channel that, and express that out to everybody throughout whatever medium I choose. If it's like um, a style within my lighting or a certain mood of how I capture people. So as I've gone through new things, I haven't been able to express that. So in that sense, it's like I'm just can't wait to catch up on all that stuff with everyone.
Yeah, no, it's very important, and I can relate what you're saying about that. That's how I tell people. Like, 'cause I write and direct films. People always say to me, "How do you write? How do you sit down and just stare at the blank page?" And for me, storytelling always comes from a place that you've experienced, like a pain you've gone through, and kind of what happens to you, right? How you're affected, and projecting that, whether it's in your characters or, like you said, the lighting, the way it's stylized. So I 100% agree with you on that. Um, I want to bring it back to like photography. Did
Mhm.
you go to school for it? How did you pick up this passion?
So I grew up basically always like illustrating, painting, drawing. Specifically, like if I really wanted to think of an example, I probably started drawing like Dragon Ball Z characters when I was in like grade like 2, 3, and they
Nice.
were like literally pieces of paper where you like print it on your pip, you print it from your printer, and then you put another piece of paper over, and you're like tracing over. Then I stopped needing the piece of paper underneath, and I just started drawing myself.
Right, right.
Um, and then I was sort of like in a box of creating characters that I loved. So my older brother was in also in painting, illustration, and photography, and I was like, wow, it's so cool that you can create these characters, but like on real people. So that was my
Right.
first influence into it. Maybe when I was in grade 9 or 10. Um, Also, I will highlight that Pokemon Snap on N64 made a huge influence on using a camera. That was like a definite highlight
Yeah, yeah.
from back in the day. But I went through the school system. I didn't actually properly finish high school, so I ended up leaving early,
Oh
and
wow.
then doing co-op when I was 17.
Okay.
So at that time, no, sorry, 16. Um, my older cousin, who's a model, got me a placement with a fashion photographer,
Wow.
just to help kind of guide me in the right direction. So
Right, right.
I was 16. I had like a creative, artistic mindset with no academic flair. So
Yeah,
I got like a hands-on experience to,
right.
hey, if you put the work in, you can actually make this happen. And there's a really good quote that says, oh, I'm gonna mess this quote up, but it's something along the lines of
Paraphrase.
talent, hard work beats talent when talent doesn't want to work hard, something like that.
Oh,
So
that's pretty cool. I never heard that.
I had something in my head at the time
Yeah,
where I was like, I realized that I have a talent, but I'm going to do the work, and I'm going to put in
yeah,
everything I can. And I'm not just going to sit back and wait for an email to come to me to say, oh, we're going to hire you. I wanted to create um, a movement for people to, we're going to be, excited to say, oh, I want a picture from specifically from Mathew Guido because it feels or looks like this. So I was in that mindset really young, and I spent a lot of time interning. I worked a lot for free, but I really looked at it like that was my school. So
yeah.
I was a sponge. I absorbed as much as I could. And I think around maybe like 21 years old, I was like pretty like grounded in the sense of artistically, I knew what my opinion was. I understood a little bit about like the way that things worked. And I had enough connections with people who were in a mentorship position with me and better than me,
Hmm.
that I leaned into, and I trusted those people, and that really helped me too. So I'm 32 now. I've been basically doing this half of my life. And I think I spent like the first 3 seasons of this show figuring out like how to make all the mistakes. So, and I still make mistakes now, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, take this as a
Now,
compliment. Take this as a. I love that story, but I just have to throw this in there. Take this as a compliment or not, but you don't look. You're 32. You look much younger, man. I don't
thanks.
know if you get that a lot.
Hey, I'll take it.
Yeah, because I'm 26 and I thought you were roughly the same age, but yeah, didn't know. But so it just goes to show you like the amount of experience you have, right? In that time, you're saying you were basically started this what in 16, 17,
Mhm.
and over the course of like people that are looking at your page or just really aspiring to the same level, I don't think comprehend how much dedication, how much time and commitment. And you said it yourself, you were working for jobs that were free, that didn't pay you at all.
Well, my thing is like I'm always after value, not money. So
Right.
value is a bigger umbrella than money is. Money is like, you're putting an actual title and label onto a service where
Yeah.
value could be completely priceless. So if I'm going to give my time to something or put the time in for free and I'm getting value, to me, I was getting paid. So I treated it like that. I worked
Yeah.
just as hard as if I was getting paid like, like $1 million. I treated getting paid $0. I worked even
Yeah.
harder. Right.
And
So,
I respect that mindset because that's actually something that I'm kind of struggling with too. Like when I started my business recently, 94 Productions, it's like there's jobs where you do it for the love of film, like you're creating these short films, but you're also not getting paid. And then you're doing jobs or corporate videos and you do get paid. But there's like a part of me where it's like when I go on those film sets, I learned so much. Like the last film set that I was on, like in terms of lighting and sound and things like that, where like you said, like you can't put a price on value. And I try to, what I'm saying is argue with people like in the arts, you have to sometimes sacrifice the pay for the value, especially if you're put in a position that can be advantageous.
Yeah, I think here's the thing. So look at yourself like a video game character that you have all different stats. Okay.
Okay.
So, if you're going to do that and you're going to look at, let's say, business conduct, communication, portfolio, um, money behavior, scheduling, all different categories, whatever it is that you want to do, marketing, blah, blah, blah. Look at the areas that you're weaker or you don't have enough. And that's where you can make you can put, like make a smart decision and say, you know what, I'm not really there yet on how I'm communicating with clients on how I'd like to be paid for this service. And every time I do a
Mm,
job, deep down, I kind of cop out on the rate that I want. And then you feel like shit after when you do the job, because let's say,
yeah.
I'll just make up like a generic number. So let's say you want to get paid $1,000, but for some reason you said 500 and you do the job, you've been paid, they like you, and then they're hiring you for the same, but deep down, you ripped yourself off.
Yeah.
So that's an area that you have to learn how to improve on. And I think until that behavior changes, you outgrow those things too. So when I
Yeah.
was working for free or corporate stuff where I'm like, I'm getting paid for it, so I feel good about it, but I'm not shooting what I want. There's a really weird balance with that. And that's like the same thing in life when it comes down to like, you want to eat all the food that you want to eat, but then you're going to feel like shit and gain weight. Like you need to
Yeah.
find that balance with everything, including um, how people pay you. And I learned over the years that you kind of have to tell people how to hire you. You have to tell people how to pay you, because everyone is really going to do what's best for them. But as an artist, there's no yellow brick road for your survival, right? Like you don't even know where you're going in three to 5 years because you can't plan it out.
Yeah.
So it becomes very, very tricky. And the only thing that you can really, really do is try to level out all of your statistics like you're a video game character.
Right.
So, like, okay, when I'm dealing with corporate people, I know how to deal with this. When I'm dealing with creative people, I know how to, work with, I can delegate, I can manage this, I can do that. No
Yeah.
one's perfect, but at least if you can like scale yourself, it helps.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just sorry about that. I got a call. No, I agree with everything you said, and it was very well put, because that's, and I'm happy you discussed about the whole pricing, because that's what I've kind of been experiencing is what you said is you say a price and then maybe you feel bad about it, or if you stay at that price, then when you do get those continuous those roles, those jobs, it's hard to like start saying, okay, instead of 500 now I need 1,000, right? Did you experience that like when you started your business, or when you started getting these jobs, like that struggle of asking for a price?
Yeah, I used to. Well, now what I learned, and I think what I kind of felt in the beginning, is I never liked verbalizing a rate. It didn't feel natural to be on the phone and be like, oh, so how much is it going to cost? And you're like,
Yeah.
So I always like do something over an email, and I break everything down by um, something like this. Okay, this is not going to be the best quote you've ever seen, but let's just say that you do you want to charge somebody $1,000. They're going to try and talk your rate down, but they don't understand where that number is coming from. So I always
Right.
produce like proper like little quotes, and this is going to be reversed, but you can break down your
No, I
fees,
see
right?
it
So like you
perfectly.
can
Yeah.
have like your creative fee that's 600, and then you can have retouching that's 200, and then you can have your rental equipment that's 200. I'm just making this up. I'd have like a whole list of stuff like assistance and production and all that.
No, for sure.
But
Yeah.
the way that you can work with someone is you can say, okay, well, I'll absorb the retouching cost. So you're offering them $200 off of your 1,000, but without them just knocking you to 500 or like changing your rate. You can say, I'm going to absorb the cost for the retouching to work with you, but like you're keeping your creative fee and you're keeping your hard
Wow.
costs, like your rental. That way you build your price in with layers and levels.
Yeah.
Now I'm represented by an agency called Sting Production. So
Okay.
um, I work on internally with that team to make all the money decisions, and then they'll speak to the client about all the administrative and logistic stuffs, which is better for me because I like being spoken to for creative terms, not
Yeah.
for all the money stuff. And like, it just
Yeah.
adds another like complication with the relationship with the client and stuff. Uh,
No, for
however,
sure.
when you're on your own, you need to figure out your survival techniques to protect yourself, but also make it look a certain way to everyone else that they don't have the permission to chop your rate in half. Like, it doesn't make
Yeah.
sense that someone that's hiring you has the permission to cut you in half like that. So it's all
No,
about how you communicate it.
no, what you just provided was very insightful. And I was on the same like kind of mindset. Like when I create my invoices, it's about providing details for the client, like to clarify what you're basically charging them, right? Instead of just giving a flat rate, like saying $1,000, right? By having a breakdown, they can see where their money's being spent, and you can also use that as a negotiation tactic. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. So where I've really also, what's good about this is like, you'll notice I had a line item that says creative fee. And what I've really done is like worked hard to build my portfolio to a rate to justify having an
Right.
expensive creative fee, because that's where I'm adding most of my value. Some of the hard costs like equipment, studio assistants, backdrops, whatever, those things are going to be the same no matter who you hire. So
Right.
the variable is, why are you hiring me versus somebody else? So usually when I'm hired, it's because people want what I do creatively
Yeah.
versus trying to get the lowest price possible. So it
Yeah,
just,
no, and that's very important, right? Because I studied before I started pursued filmmaking. I studied marketing at Ryerson, and it's all about that's all we discussed is the importance of brand and making yourself competitive, have a competitive advantage, right? Like why should we hire you compared to another photographer on Instagram? It's what you can provide, right?
yeah.
Like that certain quality. So yeah, I wanted to say, like, speaking of Instagram, I've noticed, there's a lot of people that are photographers, and there's a lot of, artworks or pieces of content that can come across very dull and very static, lacking originality, because people have tutorial videos on edits or Instagram filters.
Mm.
But your style of photography continues to excite me, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, because of your use of color palettes and makeup. And I wanted to know, like, what is the source of inspiration that gives your work that unique quality?
I think at its core, I would say a lot of the like eccentric colors and exaggerated compositions really stems from things I see in anime. I
Okay.
watch a lot of anime, and I watch it um, as like an anime nerd for like personal reasons. And
Right.
then I watch certain things because it's just so well done, and it's in a way that um, I would rather personally pull from something fantastical that isn't real that I can channel versus, recreating a reference or a fashion reference or another photographer's work. And for me, I found that the way that I've remained trend setting versus trend riding is from where my references come from. So um, that's a really important thing, I think, in general, because your first instinct is to compare yourself to another photographer or filmmaker. You're going to go on Instagram, you're going to look at somebody else, you're going to look at their feed and either recreate it or create it in the way that you wish worked for you. Um, and for myself, I stopped doing that. I actively make an effort to not do that. And I look at the things that excite me and stimulate me, and I use those as my references. So like, I'll have a creative meeting with art directors, and usually mood boards are put together from Pinterest with like lots of different references,
Right.
which I do, but I'd like to include like raw ingredients to me of just total, all the way there, like fantastical creativity. Um,
What do you mean by raw? Like the snapshot maybe of a location, like
um,
without.
I look at like, let me actually grab something. I probably have something
Sure.
over here. I look at, I'm going to pull a book from right over here. One sec.
Okay. Yeah. No problem. Yeah.
So,
So Matthew's just providing something for us to give us an insight on, how he conducts these meetings. I'm curious about this raw idea.
Let's just see.
Yeah,
I'll pull from a color palette from a book like this,
cool.
and compositionally too. Like let's say like literally, I like how these two models are interacting,
Right.
and I'll keep these as like raw ingredients for my
Mm,
compositions. That's what I mean. Like something that's like not blended into what the purpose is yet for why I'm being hired. So I have all kinds of references like for group shots and for body composition and colors and stuff. And then what ends up happening is I'll create those things on real people, and you end up with stuff that's a lot more like down this
yeah,
road where it's hyper pigmented and all that stuff.
yeah,
And that versus if I just picked something from like a Gucci campaign and say, oh, we're going to recreate this. And that's already somebody already made that from their references. So I don't want to take their references and then just put my own spin on what they did. I want to introduce my own play into that. So
yeah.
if I was going to shoot a Gucci
Right.
campaign, for example, I'd go to a meeting with one of these and I'd be like, this is what I want
Nice.
to pull from.
Yeah.
And that's why I get hired, for that kind of perspective, right?
Right. Of course. Yeah. Well, it's a very unique perspective. You're coming from a place where it's motivated by your own passions, and that's why back to the creative fees, you're integrating something that's very unique that they can't find in someone else. Like if they were to hire me, I wouldn't pull from anime. I would pull from like films that I enjoy.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a very different dynamic. And then that all is a matter of whoever the client is, what their preference is. Right. Like their taste.
Yeah, and it's like cooking. This is why I say raw ingredients. So like right now I
Right.
just introduced something like this. Let's call this like a piece of garlic.
Hmm.
You can't only cook with that. It's going to overpower everything. So
Of
you said
course.
film references, right?
Yeah.
Or film compositions or storyboards maybe from films that you love. Um, Garlic goes really good when you start to saute it with some onion and some
Yeah.
oil, and
Yeah.
you get your base down so you can cook other things on it. So I like to treat my client as like the piece of meat that's going to go in the pan.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
use my references as like the garlic and like the base. And then that way we're making something that's original, and we're literally cooking together creatively versus maybe like how fast food works. I don't know, like how it's just like boom, 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 boom. So
No, it's just that's a really cool analogy. It was really well said. Like I actually will use that. How I whether it's thinking of a client or someone approaches me about a project or I take on a project, that will be the piece of meat, right? Like the core, and then everything you provide for it will be like you said, like the oil, the garlic, and all the herbs and spices.
yeah,
Um,
and that goes down to like you said, storytelling, right? So
right.
you can parallel that to characters and the plot and like the dips and valleys of what those people go through to get the audience to feel what that character is and connect to them. So I kind of parallel all of that stuff all the time with everything
Right.
I'm doing, in a way that I don't my aesthetic. So I shoot a lot with neon light. I shoot a lot with you know a certain style doesn't overpower the client that they become scared and say, you know what, if we shoot with Matthew, his style is going to overpower our brand and it's just going
Yeah.
to be the Mathew Guido show. I don't want
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want to say, hey, if you can take 20% of what I'm doing and apply it to your brand,
Yeah.
then that's going to lead you in a cool direction. That's going to be original. And that's how I've managed to protect my artistic integrity without being overpowered by a client and just saying, you know what, we'll just do what you guys want. And that's it.
Yeah, and then your brand, you're like, if I look at it, I won't even say, was he part of this project? Like, you
Yeah, but
still leave that
that's
signature.
also
Yeah,
that's also helped me with dealing with people, with my friendships and relationships, because then you realize like, oh, how much of myself am I overpowering in a situation? Like I need to integrate a little bit better and like all that kind of stuff. So
yeah, that's very important what you said. Even like bringing it to relationships. I think a lot of creatives, including myself, we get so absorbed with our own thoughts and our imaginations that we don't even realize how it comes across. And it's not even professionally; it's even personally, right? Like with relationships, like you said. Um, and I'm sure it's improved your life, just being like the experiences in photography.
yeah, it has. So in one way, the way that I've learned to navigate being an artist has kind of become my religion in a way, because it's where I meditate to keep the right headspace. Um, it's affected my like me personally, but it's actually pulled me in a really good direction.
Nice.
So it like anything that you're doing, if you can zoom out and get some perspective, you can see the whole picture, and then when you see the whole picture, you can start to really see like how this thing is like layered and how you're going to structure it and all that. So
Yeah, no, that's very important. Like I said, it's always important to have, and then that goes back to what you were saying before about the balance, right?
yeah,
You don't want to overpower the
take
situation.
takeaway from this podcast is everybody needs to zoom out.
Everyone needs to zoom out. That might be the
Yep,
title. I got to write
it
it
is.
down.
Yeah, zoom out, people.
Zoom out. Yeah, zoom out with Mathew Guido.
That's it.
I love it. Yeah. And yeah, that's again, before the podcast, you were asking me like, what was your intention with the podcast and why you started it. And that's exactly it. Is as much as I enjoy these conversations, I learn a lot from people like yourself that I can apply to my life, whether it's personally or professionally.
Hmm.
So, with regards to your work, we've hyped you up a lot, discussing your details and how you navigate the business side. But one thing that struck me, and you mentioned it briefly at the beginning of the podcast, is that there was a piece of content that you posted that got picked up by Adobe Lightroom.
Mm.
I thought that was fascinating. It was there because I use Adobe, and there's always like a shot, and it's credited by an artist before the loading screen,
Yeah.
during the loading screen, right? So walk us through the process. Like, what was that like leading up to creating that content and then getting noticed for it?
That piece of content in general was such a big deal for me because I really just took a second to shoot exactly what I wanted. I was with an agency at the time, and I was kind of being like flattened and commercialized.
Mm,
I don't feel like they understood me, and I thought, okay, I almost felt like I was almost made to feel selfish to want to shoot in my artistic style versus in a more commercial way that would get jobs in. And like I was in a weird headspace to begin with. This is 2016.
right.
And I'm like, I just want to shoot something so unapologetically the way that I want. And that's what this creative was. Um, so I got together with some key like teammates, I guess I'll call them, like stylist, hair, makeup, model, and even on the photography side, like the team that I had, people that just like understood me and vibe with me.
Right.
So I created this 100% on creative terms. I published it on Adobe's Behance network, which is basically like a industry version of like a social network. So it's all creatives. So it's really illustrators, photographers, graphic designers, product design. It's all visual, like anything that you would use like an Adobe product to create. Basically, people upload their portfolios onto the social network, but Adobe actually rates and curates collaborations from people who do well on there. So that shoot specifically went viral on Pinterest, um,
Okay.
and then also on the Behance network, I got like a crazy amount of views in a pretty short amount of time.
Nice.
And I got an email from Adobe's senior creative director saying we would love to use this image for our next Lightroom cover. And
That's
I was just
amazing.
like,
Yeah.
so
Right. I can only imagine. Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, okay, what's the catch? Like, how is this gonna,
Yeah.
like, how does this work?
Yeah.
And it turned out to be
Yeah.
like the best moment of my career for sure. So it was amazing because it was like a stamp of approval from like such a high um, caliber on something that I literally set out and said, fuck everyone, I'm going to do this for myself. Like, I'm just going
Yeah.
to go and shoot something that I want to do. So to get that back off of like taking off my own leash and going out there and getting celebrated for it was like an amazing achievement and accolade professionally, but then also personally, it was like so validating. And that was the
Yeah,
best
for
part of it.
sure. It gave you
Yeah.
that recognition, gave you the confidence to keep going. Like as much as people think, uh, that creatives, like, they're what they put out there, they're always having a good time. Like they're sure of their work, or, they're pursuing what they love. They're following their heart. There's a lot of self-doubt. And from the way you describe that story, I'm imagining that you're kind of at a crossroads. You weren't sure what was happening. Maybe you were feeling in a rut, and that
Yeah.
credible source really like put you on a different trajectory.
Yeah. And if that's probably what I'm most known for now, and that was 6 or 5 years ago. That's why, to touch back on what I was saying in the beginning of this podcast,
Right.
there's so much more that I've grown in the 5 years since that happened that I haven't released yet. And I'm just like So
That's insane
close.
to me. Yeah, that's insane to
It's
me.
so close. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Is it because like you're organizing everything in your timeline, like how it's going to appear, like on your profile, or it's just you're working at it?
Not really. It's more from I was doing well in that pocket, so I was
Okay.
creating work in that pocket for so long. Um, and now I'm at a point where I've actually remained true to that, but I've elevated it.
Hmm.
And going back to my zooming out thing, like I've been doing so much work that's been like portrait and beauty and like
Yeah.
really,
Very
at,
close. Yeah.
really
Focus
close
on the
up, right?
face. Yeah.
So now I'm tapping into those characters I've created, the scenes that they're in, where that character, what room is that person in? Like it's always been close, right? So now I can story tell with locations, and my compositions are much more cinematic. I've also
Nice.
started directing as well, so I've gone into the video side a lot more. And I think I was a little resistant to go down the video road just because I wanted it to be at the same level as the photography.
Right.
So I spent a lot of time training in that on that side, and now I feel like super comfortable. I'm really happy. So I have some film projects coming out, um, and I'm almost treating my new body of work, like each photography story, like a short film. So I've developed like characters, locations, and
That's amazing. Yeah.
there's more to it than it just looking cool. So I
Yeah.
think I figured out how to make things aesthetically look a certain way, and
Yeah.
then now I've that was like the surface of it, and now I'm focused on what's behind it, where that character's coming from, and all that.
Yeah, and it's so exciting to hear like all these different mediums that you're pulling, right? It's not just photography, and you're not stagnant. And I think that's inevitable for any artist or anyone that's passionate about what they do, is to evolve, right? To
Well,
constantly be
the
reinventing
part that's
themselves.
expensive and exciting about any artist isn't their technique and how they express it. It's really their thinking and their
Yeah,
mindset and their taste level. So my taste level and where my head's at a certain place, that it gives me permission to explore other mediums and not feel like I'm doing everything or I'm lost or whatever the case is. It's like if I was going to work on a sculpture, I feel very confident to do that. If I was going to work on a video, I feel confident to do
right.
that. It's all coming from the same place.
No, no, no.
I
I know exactly what you mean by that is. It's
Yeah.
like the artworks. I'll share with you after the podcast. Like, you'll see that I do films, but I also do my artworks, and they're two different mediums. But I put the same amount of passion, and it's coming from the same place when I uh, depict these characters on the page, right? In the way in which they are. Dragon Ball Z, by the way, Pokemon. Yeah, I think you'll get a kick out of it. Um,
Yeah.
and that's why I should mention as well, like especially Pokemon. I like that it comes from that place, and I like that you're unapologetically expressive about your passion for anime. Like a
Mhm.
lot of people might be, you know what I mean. It might
Dude,
sound funny, but it's the
when I was
reality.
in school, I used to
Yeah,
hide, like I used to have like even my like every little detail about that nerdy side of myself. I was
yeah,
so insecure about it.
yeah,
And I would hide it a
yeah,
lot because I didn't want to get made fun of for it or whatever the case
yeah,
was.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And no, and that's what I'm saying is like I take a inspiration from you where it's like I still post my stuff, but there's a part of me where it's like, does anyone like, does it look funny? Like there's these Nintendo characters, whatever. And then I'll see your work and I'll see your portfolio, and I'm like, that's exactly the vision that I had for myself. Is you're showing, you're integrating your passions, your childhood, what made you who you are today,
mhm.
with what you're doing tomorrow. And
Well,
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe
sure.
it's the same for you too, but there's a certain like euphoria, fantasy moment whenever you're gaming or when you're a kid and you're doing something that's like, I don't know, like even playing like even playing like Super Mario. There's certain little things that happen in those times when I was like 8 years old, 7 years old, 6 years old, where a part of my brain that I wasn't able to access in my normal real life routine. It opened up to that. So to me, those references are like bookmarks of just like innocent creativity. It's just
Yeah.
innocent fantasy. It feels good. There's a little nostalgia there, but I don't look at it like nostalgic. So I'm pulling things from my past. I look at
Right.
using those things like I was saying about ingredients, and then furthering that same line of thinking or feeling. So
Well, I'm glad we're on this subject because I tell my friends all the time, when I think back to those shows like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or Digimon, Obviously I watch when you rewatch them, you think to yourself, like certain parts come across maybe corny, or because you're an adult, you see it with different lenses, from a different perspective. But at its core, there was a story. Now, I'm not too familiar with the content now, because I don't watch it on Family Channel or whatever. But I remember as a kid, like they at least tried. And Yu-Gi-Oh, for instance, that comes to me, like there was some powerful storytelling going on, character arcs, and the emotional moments, as funny as that may sound. And what I'm trying to say is that as a child watching this, it really gave me a lot of inspiration, to tell my stories. I'm not
Yeah.
saying they're the same way, but it's like you said, they're transcending. It's not just nostalgic. It's more than that. It's bigger than that. And yeah, that's why I think they always come back to us. Like I was doing a podcast about Pokemon, with a few buddies, and I asked them, like, before the podcast ended, I'm like, what do you think it is about Pokemon that brings us all together? Like we're 25, 26 years old and we're still talking about it. And 10-year-olds are playing it now. And it's that sense of community, right? It's that sense of storytelling that everybody can enjoy, and relate to either the characters or what's going on, and they feel part of it. And like I said, at its core, it starts with great storytelling, what we were discussing this whole time. So I think that's so cool that you share the same idea, man. It's
Yeah, I think being a good artist, being a good storyteller, really is like having the ability to like surrender your everyday perspective of the world into something that can umbrella over other people's lives as well too. And I think now, especially because of like think about it over COVID, like how oversaturated everybody was, like, oh, I love Netflix. Oh, I'm so sick of Netflix. It's just like everything's
yeah.
so oversaturated. So the audiences have gotten way smarter. Like
Oh yeah.
people have like editing eyes now, and that's just like on everyday people. So it's good because it challenges creators to go further. But
Yeah.
like the audiences are much
It
smarter
also drive you
than
crazy because I'm
before.
editing a
Yeah.
short film right now, man, and it's like my own sister, who's not in the creative field at all. She's in HR. Will tell me, like, that guy, that's there's a lack of continuity. That shot doesn't match up right there, and she'll zoom in, and I'm like, holy crap! Like, how? I'm saying to myself, I'm like, 20 years ago, let's say, who was zooming into shots or like really paying attention that easily? And it's like anyone, like you said, uh, especially with the media that we're consuming every day, and what we see on Instagram, can point out those flaws.
Yeah, and like you should take your sister's opinion super serious because
I do.
because listen, at the end of
Yeah.
the day, whoever's commenting on the content that you put out probably isn't a film professional. It's probably someone like your sister, and
Yeah.
that just takes that one comment. So it's better if you hear it from her directly than
No,
someone
for
saying, "Oh,
sure.
there's no continuity on." Right.
No,
So
and then
I take everybody's opinions into consideration the same way I would take a comment into consideration.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and then that's how you have to be.
yeah. No, you beat me to it, and that's what I was going to finish my point and say that, at first, I'll be honest, I was very resistant and saying, you don't know anything. And then I started to realize, I'm like, no, no, no. This is an audience member. This is as my friend would tell me, this is technically a customer, a client. This is
Mm,
someone, that's viewing your content, and giving you their perspective, their opinion about something, right? And that's why this morning, I had a raw clip before I went did my exercise routine, and I said, quickly, this is bothering me. I can't sleep at night. Tell me if you see anything wrong with this clip. And she's looking at it and she's like, no, I don't see anything wrong. Okay, I'm like, okay, good, because she's the first person that I would go to, like, kind of have that friendship where it's like she would tell me straight up if something's wrong, or if she's very critical that way. And that just goes to show, not being in the creative industry, she's still a member of the audience, right?
mm.
And like your point, you should be open minded to everybody's opinion. Obviously, not everyone's right. There are some things that you can argue, right? Like if I give you an opinion about your photography, right, whether you take it in or not, like that's your prerogative. But at the end of the day, like, you might even take it might even give you an idea on something to change. But for sure, man, definitely keep open minded, and that only takes time, right? As artists, as we grow, we start to realize, like, people are working with you, instead of against you, or at least the people that you associate and surround yourself with. So, like, because we're on that point, like, how has your family been, or your parents? Like, have they always been supportive of this passion, this dream of yours, photography, or were they a little bit resilient at first?
Um, I would say that since I was a kid, it was pretty evident that where I was sort of like growing towards versus not. So I had a really hard time with school. I battle a little bit of dyslexia. So
Okay.
through that, I got put into special ed when I was in elementary school on certain times. And I would kind of get grouped into feeling just like unintelligent when I was
Yeah.
in that mode. I was like, I don't know, how old are you in grade six, seven? Like you,
12,
yeah.
12, 13, I
So
think. Yeah.
at that time to get separated from like the smart people, like it kind of messed up with my head
Yeah.
a little bit. So I stopped trying because of that. So my parents saw how excited and passionate and like full of life I was towards creative things.
Yeah.
Um, so I think by the time I broke away from the school system, um, all of those challenges were gone, and I took it so seriously that they took it seriously. Like whatever, I have a very intense father. Like my dad is like a mix of Inspector Gadget
Okay.
meets uh, Eugene Levy from like Meet the Parents.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry, Robert De Niro from Meet the Parents, not Eugene Levy.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very
Yeah,
stern. Yeah.
he's got that Robert De Niro, but then
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but then he's quirky. Like my dad basically challenges the way that I think all the time, and that's what he did professionally. Like he was a consultant, and my dad was almost like a psychiatrist for businesses. He would like totally deconstruct a company and then put it back together, and he
Right.
had techniques for doing that. So my dad was already working on my head since I was a kid, and I was very like aware that he was going to challenge me going on my own. So I made sure to cross my T's and dot my I's. Like I tried really, really hard to create a calendar for myself and be busy all the time, which didn't really contribute to where I am now, other than it kept my parents happy. So
Yeah.
um,
So what? So
I made it. I made it easy for them sometimes. Like I made
yeah,
it.
you're alluding. Yeah, you're alluding to a story that I feel like I can relate as well. So are you saying they kind of gave you that time to explore this passion, even though it wasn't as conventional? Like you were, like
My
you said,
my
like kept
my
yourself busy.
parents just celebrated me being me, and I'm really grateful for that because I probably would have been different if it was a different situation. So in in respect to them doing that, I definitely took that freedom very seriously, and made sure that they could see that, oh, Matthew's not playing around, you know. So
Right. Yeah, you took yourself seriously and you took the art form seriously. So they said, okay, this
yeah,
guy, he has something going for him.
did we have hiccups along the way? Absolutely.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, but that stuff is like, that happens no matter what you're doing with your parents when you're going from being dependent and being a kid, and then you're growing and you want to be your own individual person, and they know what's best for you. They have more experience. So
No,
uh,
that's my struggle, and I think are you referring to as well? Because I can only imagine. Are you Italian by any chance?
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm Italian as well, right? And that same mindset of pursuing a linear path. My parents even tell me all the time, like, we rather have you working in office because it's safe, even though they see like how creative I am and how much I can't sit still. And what I'm saying is that, like, those hiccups, like you said, that come along the way, I can only imagine when like you would work a job for free and you're trying to explain to your parents, it's for the value. Did you ever come across those kinds of dilemmas?
Oh yeah. Keep in mind too, like social media wasn't around when I started, and
Right.
there was no way to say like, but look how many likes I'm getting. Look how many like
Yeah. Yeah.
look at how they can actually analyze and scale this. Like there was no, I had a MySpace like when I started. Like that was in
Oh
like,
my God. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean? So
Yeah. Way back. Yeah.
way back when, and Facebook was like a huge part, but like parents didn't understand that at the time. This is like going
Yeah.
back to like 2007 and 8, and like Facebook kind of like just happened at that time, and there was no way to like show, hey, this is working. It was just all my own word, right?
But to take, yeah,
So to be an
exactly. And
Italian family, they're like, where's
yeah.
the checks, where's the money,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I
And that's
always
what I
had,
kind of, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
no, no, it's okay. I kept part-time jobs as I was going to kind
Okay.
of like protect myself from, you know, opinion, number one, and number two, also, okay, I'm like, if I work hard like this, then I'll have a little bit more money, I can get more gear, and then I can do this and I can do
Right.
that.
Right.
So I think that technique worked for me, but yeah, it has not been smooth sailing, but that's what makes the adventure. So
No, that's I'm glad you're open and honest about this, because that's what I'm kind of experiencing myself. It's just that, again, that crossroads where
yeah.
I've been working all these different jobs, part-time, full-time, and then just before the pandemic, not knowing the pandemic would happen, I said, let me give myself this time to focus on what I want to do for the next 5 years or a lifetime. And yeah, that's what I want to say is like, did you have a moment where you said like, where is this headed? Or did you have any like doubts, or were you kind of just persistent? Or did you give yourself, I should say, like that time, because you said you work part-time jobs. Did you ever say to yourself like, do I got to go all in and just focus on this craft?
Yeah, I did the part-time job thing in the beginning just to kind of balance out like the nana opinion, the father opinion, the mom
Yeah, yeah,
opinion.
yeah.
Um, I did that like really early on in the beginning. Then I went all in. Um, and I had a really, really tough time for about like, let's say 4 solid years. And the reason being, and maybe this is something that I don't know if you can relate to or not, is
Hmm.
when I was working, when I was being creative, when I was doing things for my career, um, I work a lot better at nighttime. That is when that I tapped into
Mm.
that. And
Yeah.
parents just see that you're up late, you're not waking up early, all that kind of stuff. So I realized that I had to contain and manage that behavior I was living at home, um, in a way that I could protect it, because I'm like, I feel like what I'm tapping into when I'm like vibing at night, listening to music and like developing out some ideas is so special that no one's going to understand it. So I have to show my parents that I have a routine, I'm waking up, I'm doing this. And then I would almost communicate with them like, hey, this weekend I'm spending the time developing something. So like Friday to Sunday, it's me time. I'm going to be in my room. And I had to speak to them like that so I had to communicate it. But I had to also let them see that like I'm waking up at normal times during the week. I'm going to work. I would like even take my laptop and go work at a Starbucks away from the house just so my
Good.
parents would see I was leaving. But this is all things that I was battling when I was still living at home in my early 20s.
Yeah.
Um, and then when I moved out and was on my own and was away from all of that, um, the opposite happened where like I lost all my structure, all the days blurred,
Yeah, of
you know,
course. You have your own
and
living space. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that all changed. And then somewhere along the line, you just kind of snap into like, am I the problem? Like, but this is a very hard career to be a creative or to even let's zoom out again, to have a job that you like doing
Yeah.
is such a privilege, and you
It
have to
is.
you have to learn to treat it as such and put in the work to protect that, because if
It's
you
so
don't,
delicate.
you're
Yeah.
going to end up either wasting a big chunk of your 20s and then end up in your 30s settling on a job that you don't want. So you have to act like, it's like there's another quote, winning isn't everything, but wanting to is. So you have to act like a winner to get there. That attitude is what makes you a winner, not the achievements. Like right now, you could look and say, oh, Matthew, you're so lucky. You're in a winning position. The definition of luck is being prepared for opportunity, and winning to me is an attitude. So those two things really help me to protect this career.
Yeah.
I don't just wake up and shoot these amazing things and then do whatever I want, which maybe that's how it comes across from Instagram, because it's only
Right.
one
Of course.
what it's only one dimension. That's why lately I've been thinking a lot about I do have things to say and I want to be able to communicate them to people. So I'm like, maybe I should start a YouTube. Maybe I should start doing more videos to let people in on how I
Yeah, for
arrived
sure.
at this place that I'm at. But back to the original point with parental stuff and was there a little bit of struggle there? 100%.
Yeah.
Um, did that help me get to where I am at now? Yeah, because you have to go through that no matter what it is. If I had a normal job and I wasn't, doing this, maybe my struggles at that time would have been like, my parents want me to buy a house and I want to travel. So I don't want to, it all depends. Parents are like, they keep you in they let you color inside of the lines to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And the more you communicate and become friends with them, depending on what kind of people they are, you
Yeah.
know, they get to live their dreams out through you as well. So
Yeah. No,
yeah.
it's true. Like you said it at the beginning. I can only imagine, right? They're worried, they're concerned, especially how you described your father being a Robert De Niro from Meet the Parents. I can only
Anyone
imagine.
watching this that knows my dad is gonna laugh, because he's like, I'm gonna send you a nice little video of him after this, and you tell me.
No, yeah, for sure. I saw a touching post that it was your father, and you were just showing him stuff on the camera, and it was like beautifully lit, and the caption was "Take your
Oh
work to
yeah,
kid," right? Take your kid to work day, and or take your dad, I should say. And I just thought that was so cool, and just telling your story, like to have that moment. What was that like? Just showing your dad like how far you've come, or seeing that. Was it
well,
emotional?
yeah, for sure. My dad has always been like my number one fan, but I'm the last person to know that, in a way. Like,
Right.
everyone tells me, "Oh, your dad's so proud of you," and like this and that, and then I'm
That's how I
like,
feel. Yeah.
"Man, this guy's so hard on me." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so bringing him to work was great, and he has really good taste. So I'll be showing him something that I'm doing, or like, "Hey, Dad, look at this look at this shot," and my dad's
Yeah.
like, maybe you should crop this in and like maybe pick another frame." Like, he has an opinion, you know what I mean?
That's great. Yeah, that's great.
So I
And I
like
could,
it.
yeah, yeah. And my parents, especially my mom, the same way. Where as much as they're not in film, they'll still give you an opinion on like, oh, that actor, or change this scene, or the cinematography should be better. That's out of focus, but it's all out of love, right? And that's
Yeah.
what we can take from it.
The other
So,
thing, the other thing I realized on this
yeah.
podcast is the next time I do one, I'm definitely not going to use a chair with wheels, because I feel like as I'm talking, I'm just like floating
Yeah, yeah. I was just gonna
all
say,
over
like,
the
I don't know
place.
if I don't know if there's like stuff going on in the background. I don't know if like he has stuff to do, so we're just trying to squeeze Matthew in.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fine, man. People want to hear your thoughts, most importantly, and
Yeah.
I think that's what they're taking from it. And before we go, I just want to say, like, what do you hope that the audience takes from your work? What do you want? What's the legacy, the impact?
I think number one, the one thing that I'm always trying to do is I'm really, really trying to be known for the light that I use and the way that I use it. Also, my relationship with color has been like such a special thing for me, because you can really like, I'll give a quick example. So let's say you take the Mona Lisa, a picture that everybody knows, and you have it in its normal form, and then you split it into 10 different colors, and you ask 100 people which one's their favorite.
Right.
People will pick their favorite even though the actual image has not changed at all, based on the color.
Mm,
So color can actually be more powerful than the content, because people connect with
yeah.
colors for lots of different emotional reasons they don't even know about.
Yeah.
The same way as smell can trigger a memory, or certain things. So I'm really trying to further, as best as I can, my compositions and my content with light, technically, and then I'm really, really trying to use color to take it one step further. So the Mathew Guido experience is full sensory. That's like really what I'm trying to do,
Yeah.
and take people into my magical little land that's in my head.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, it's the recent post that you've done, you were part of a music video.
mhm.
Um, and that artist that you took the shot of with the orange and the reds, and how she was staring back. It again, as a filmmaker, like, it's striking to me, because I love shots. I just love how they're composed, like how they're positioned, and how you position their models. And I think that's a great avenue that you're picking up, directing, or filmmaking, for that matter.
Mhm.
So I'm excited for you for that, and
Thanks,
yeah,
man.
looking forward to some films. Yeah, are you writing any scripts, or you're writing as well? Okay, good. That's what I want to hear, because that's a true
I
storytelling
listen.
right there.
I'm writing in the most like non-grammatical way, where
Oh, okay, okay.
someone will clean it up when it gets
Someone will
put
clean
into
it
like
up,
yeah,
and they'll get a secondary credit.
exactly. But I'm letting the ideas out on paper.
Right,
So
right, right. Yeah, no, that's so important, man. It's I still remember at TIFF, I was at one of those screenings, and uh, after the show, after the screening, they do a Q&A, and then there was someone very young who stood up and said, how do you become a filmmaker? And the guy's like, by learning how to write a story. So I think that's speaks to a lot. Um, if anyone pursues that kind of career, or any creative path, as proven with this podcast, right? That
Yeah.
storytelling is at its core.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on here and letting me just like rant, talk through
Yeah.
examples, and
No, it
hopefully
was,
there's some takeaways for you guys too.
no, for
And
sure. It was very insightful, like I said, and that's why I do these podcasts, because I've been following you for a while, and I noticed you follow my content as well. So it's like I want to know who this person is, because again, as proven with this conversation, I didn't know that you had so much work that you're that's even more superior than the ones that you're putting out now. You know what I mean? Like that, there's a whole portfolio, and the struggles you went through, and your parents. Judgments and things like that. Like it's just it humanizes the person, and that's the whole intent, is for people to see that we're all just like you and I.
exactly.
Yeah. So having said that, thank you again, Matthew Guido, for coming on the podcast. Thank
Been
you
a
everybody
pleasure.
for listening, and remember to zoom out. Take care, and we'll talk soon.